Okay, cool. Yeah, I think it would probably be best to ask, like, save your questions in this channel for the end, because I do plan on having a good amount of time for Q&A. Cool. Yeah, I'm excited as well. All right, let's get going. So this talk is called Great Expectations: Breaking into the Modern Video Game Industry. My name is Max Litvinov, and currently I am a gameplay engineer at Red Storm Entertainment in Raleigh, North Carolina. So at one point in time, I wanted to work on commercial video games or get a role in the video game industry. This talk will cover part of my journey interviewing with and trying to get the attention of game studios, as well as real world resources I used along the way trying to get a role in the game industry. So basically, how this talk's going to go, I'm going to go over my background. I'm going to go through some essentials. Basically, I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Is everyone muted? Okay, hello? There we go. Okay. I was getting some Okay, I was getting an echo. I was like listening to myself. Okay, great. So yeah, so we're gonna go through my background. We're gonna go through essentials, basically everything I think that is most important to getting a job in the industry that I use directly. We're gonna go through hard resources. By that I mean books, web pages, applications that I used in my journey. We're going to go through 3 case studies of 3 examples of how the essentials and the resources helped me or others break into the industry, and we're going to have some time for Q&A. So my background: I attended North Carolina State University, where I graduated with a degree in computer science. I previously worked in interactive media as well as serious games. I got my first game industry position in 2017 with Jam City. Jam City is a mobile game studio headquartered in Culver City. I worked in their San Diego office, and currently I work at Red Storm Entertainment, which is a Ubisoft studio. I've had the privilege to work on a couple of really fun commercial video game projects. That includes Cookie Jam Blast, Ubisoft Massive's Avatar project, Starlink Battle for Atlas, and currently I work on the Assassin's Creed VR game. Okay, essentials. So this first slide is directed to students. Students of all disciplines, I would definitely want to say take advantage of special topics courses that your university offers. And what I mean by that is when I was in the computer science program at State, they had special topics courses that weren't directly related to my major, but classes that I could take for my major, like game design, advanced game projects. Definitely, when you're making your schedule, look for classes that can help with a career in game development. Another thing is be on the lookout for internship programs. I know a lot of studios like Blizzard, Ubisoft, Epic, they have internship programs and graduate programs for students that they always post on their LinkedIn or their Twitter page or all over any of their social media. So be on the lookout for those, especially towards the end of a semester, towards the end of the spring semester leading up to the summer. Another thing to take advantage of is game development clubs. If your university, I know NC State had a game development club where you would get together with students after normal course hours and just talk about video games or make video games for fun. So this is an interesting slide, and it's basically, you can see that's what my resume looked like the last time I edited it. And you can see it's very difficult or different from your typical resume that you would normally see on LinkedIn or anywhere. It has a clean format with headers. It has a lot of images and icons. It also has a picture of like a headshot of me, which I know a lot can some recruiting managers or forums say that you shouldn't do this. I found it actually to be successful to put a name or a face to a name. And this Photoshop I actually did not make I whatsoever besides the text. I had a friend build it in Photoshop who is an artist, and that is something I definitely recommend. I've had multiple people say they remember this resume. Hiring managers or HR representatives say that they remember this resume, and I think it having an elaborate resume definitely stands out in the game industry. So we have another great example. This is my colleague James Tiller. He's an engineer. I've worked on him. I work with him on multiple games. What I really like about his resume is he has pictures of the games that he's worked on. You can see Antonio Brown there, Madden 19, as well as the Virtual Trainer Patient. That I really like. That is something I would have done as well. So very similar to my resume in terms of it's a little bit more abstract. One thing to note here is he does rate his proficiency and skills in programming languages and game engines. I've heard that's not a good thing to do, but I've also gotten many interviews and I used to have ratings on my resume as well. So I don't think it's I would probably avoid it, but I don't think it's the end of the world if you have it on there to show that you are really good using this software. Okay, another example from one of my favorite games that I found on LinkedIn is a Overwatch inspired resume from an Overwatch hero from the game Overwatch. You can see they have ratings. The text is the same. You can see their age at the bottom as their level. I thought this was another really cool one. And once again, the goal is to stand out to a hiring manager here with these resumes. They are also very cool to look at. Okay, this is probably the most important slide in the entire presentation, and that is spending the time to make stuff, make mods, make games in your personal time, and especially using the commercial engines Unity 3D or Unreal Engine 4. YouTube is a great source of tutorial for both of these game engines. And what I was doing when I was when I was preparing for interview or working on my portfolio is I would work on a personal project, a game that I liked working on. If I didn't know how to do something, I would look on YouTube, and then I would actually uh, post them on my personal webpage, which I'll get to in a little bit. And I would have a link to Unity does a good job at this, a WebGL build of the game where a hiring manager could actually just, while they're looking through my webpage, literally play the game right then and there. Or if the game's not built for the web, have a executable. I recommend having an executable for the game. So online portfolio. This is my online portfolio from since the last time I updated it. What I have been told about this portfolio and why people like it is it's very straight to the point. You can see there's a link more about me, view my resume, and there are basically a nice tile block of projects or games that I have worked on or contributed to. And during one of my case studies, I will be I'll actually open up the web page and take a look at one of the games, and that was something that I did actually on my Jam City interview. Source control. So source control is the practice of tracking and managing changes to code. Basically code in game projects. Source control management systems provide a running history of code development and help resolve conflicts. So basically, all game projects use some version of source control, especially when working with large teams. And this is important because uh, all all disciplines, I believe, need to learn source control. And at Red Storm, all disciplines use source control. So I think it's very important, especially with a personal project. A personal project is a great way to learn source control because you can publish your project on source control, and each change you make, you can see a history of it. And that also will allow hiring managers, especially for engineers, to look at your code on that GitHub webpage. Two of the most popular are Git and Perforce. Game jams. Game jams are another great way of meeting industry professionals. Basically, game jams are a hackathon for video games. You go to one location or virtual, and like the Global Game Jam, I know has sites and also is virtual, where you'll basically work on a game for 48 hours. You'll meet industry professionals potentially if the game jam actually is hosted by a company, and basically you'll quickly create a new game that you can make accessible online and actually put on your portfolio. And I have done that with a game jam I attended a couple summers ago when I was with Jam City, and I will bring up this in a case study as well. So this is a cool slide because it's really about the importance of playing video games and diversifying your game portfolio. What I mean about that is if you normally play first person shooters, it's good to maybe play like a 2D game or a third person game. Or if you normally play mobile, maybe try a PC game. That's important because you will be asked what games you're playing. And it's really, and as specifically a gameplay engineer, and not only a gameplay engineer, but many, pretty much all the disciplines, you will compare and contrast games from other companies from features that you're working on. So it's good to have a wide range of just knowledge about games and definitely different types of games. One question I know that has been asked many times of me is give an example of a gameplay feature and how you would improve that feature if you could work on it. A question I like to ask is, okay, what game are you playing right now? And then they'll tell me, and I'll say, okay, if you worked on that team for that game, what feature would you like to work on and why? And this just shows basically a passion for the craft and a passion for games because games are supposed to be fun. Okay, we'll talk about some real resources. So, a portfolio creator, I think it's best to use some sort of software to help you build your portfolio. Mine's very basic. I just use WordPress. Some other ones I know that are really good are Behance, Carbon Made, Adobe Portfolio. There's a wide range of these. It'll definitely help you make a clean, easy website. And the hosting is done, at least mine, through GoDaddy, and it's very cheap. Okay, so this talk is for all disciplines, but since I'm an engineer, I do want to dive a little bit into engineering specific things. Like this is a great book called Game Programming Patterns by Robert Nystrom. It's available online for free. I've actually read it many times, and it has practical concepts that are used in the game industry uh, for game architecture or high level game programming systems. Uh, the stuff that's written in this book is used every single day, and I think it's a great book. Another great book by Sanjay Madhav, Game Programming Algorithms and Techniques. Sanjay used to work, I think, for Medal of Honor, and now he is a professor at USC Games Department. This book is platform agnostic, meaning it's a little bit older, but the concepts still are relevant today. It's also it dives into a lot of programming concepts, and it is called game programming. But I believe it is also used for non-programmers. It covers a wide range of things that are used in the industry every day: networking, linear algebra, game cameras, game input, lighting, and AI to name a few. Another good book, Level Up: The Guide to Great Video Game Design by Scott Rogers. Scott Rogers, I believe, worked on the God of War franchise. It has a wide range of game design concepts and is really great for any video game professional. And I recommend this book to really anyone that wants to know anything about how video games are built on the game design side. Just in general, this is a great read, and it's just really interesting. Okay, insights. A good way to know, say you're interviewing at a company and you want to know, what are the interview questions people have been asked in the past? Like, how many rounds of interviews are there? Like, what was someone's experience? Glassdoor is a good resource for that. It's basically, you can find anonymous information on game studios. You can see reviews of people's experiences with companies. You can see salary samples if you're interested, and you can also see interviews. Like, you can see this image here is a an example of someone who interviewed at Bungie in 2016 and how their experience was. So this is one of my favorite tools and a tool I used before programming interviews, and it's called HackerRank. And basically, it's a tool to help practice programming interviews. It has an easy interface. It has step-by-step videos on how to solve problems if you're stuck, and it covers performance and complexity, big O, and it has many test cases, which I know is very important for interviews, specifically programming interviews. Now, the goal of a site like this isn't to memorize answers; it's to get your brain in a critical thinking mindset that will really go a long way before a programming interview with a game company. So here's the interface. It's you see the code right there, and you see the congratulations, you solved this challenge with all the test cases. And I know it actually gamifies it a little bit. You'll get badges and ratings and scores, which is always cool. Online coursework. If you're not a student, or if you are a student, this is a really good platform to use. It's called Udemy. It's an online learning platform. I've used it to brunch up on Unreal Engine 4 courses. There's many programming courses on C++ and C Sharp, game engine courses, art courses, really anything you can think of. You'll complete the courses. There's really good instructors. There are quizzes. They'll pause videos for you to complete a problem and then continue. They'll answer questions on a forum that you can follow alongside the course, and you'll also get a certificate for completion. Okay, case studies. I will go through 3 examples of experiences I've seen that have helped me or others break into the industry, based on the essentials and resources that I just previously discussed. Okay. A couple years ago in 2016, I interviewed with Nickelodeon Game Studios in Glendale, and one of the questions they asked me was, design the quest system architecture for one of your favorite games. I said, what game should I pick? And they said, what are you playing now? And I said, oh, I'm playing Deus Ex Mankind Divided. And so I walked through how just very high level, how I would create the quest system for Deus Ex Mankind Divided. Now, a lot of things really helped me with this question, and that being the game programming patterns. I actually took a game programming pattern, the event queue, from that book that I read that really helped me solve this problem, because it is an architecture problem. I had a history of playing the Deus Ex franchise, so I knew I was just playing it. I knew the game really well, which always helps with a question like this. And using HackerRank and practicing my programming skills just put me in a good critical thinking mindset. So all of these really helped just this one interview question that I had and working through it. Okay, game jams. In the summer of 2018, I attended a game jam that was sponsored by Jam City in San Diego. And at this game jam, I met a guy by the name of Peter Tillman, who was a aspiring QC or QA analyst. And him and I worked together on a game. We got to know each other. And at the end of the game jam, he actually said, "Hey, I'm looking for roles in QA and QC." And I said, "Okay, we have some roles at Jam City." And I actually referred him, and he got a job and still currently works there. And I think that because Peter attended this game jam, which was sponsored by Jam City, he got to work directly with me, and we got created a relationship, which he ended up applying and works at Jam City right now. So what can we take from that? Attending a game jam, who knows if like who knows what Peter would be doing now if he didn't attend the game jam. He might be working somewhere else, but he got exposed to Jam City and myself, and he was able to network, which is good. He had the ability to demo a game. We finished a game project, and we published it online on GitHub as well. Okay, so talking about a gameplay feature you're proud of. In my Jam City interview, I was asked about talking about a gameplay feature I was proud of, and I actually let's see, here we go. This is my web page, and I actually clicked on. Can everyone see my web page? Okay. So I clicked on. This was a game that I made in Unity, and it actually had just a description of what I worked on, a description of the motivation, and I had a link basically right here to play the game in Unity. So there is a Unity web app and a recruiter, or basically in my interview, we were able to play the game as well as take a look at the GitHub repository and pull up the code for the game then and there. So I thought that this was very useful during my interview. Okay, let's go back to PowerPoint. Okay. So yeah, what can we take from that? Game projects on portfolios are great. Talking about a game you worked on in an interview. If the game's online, make sure it's playable or a video is available, which I had, and be able to discuss the technical aspects, especially what you worked on to contribute in the game. Okay, thank you. And before I go through any questions, I want to say that Ubisoft Red Storm is hiring. We have a bunch of roles. You can see more of these roles or all of them at redstorm.com/careers, or message me directly if you are interested or in learning more about any of these roles. Okay, so I guess now is a good time to answer questions. Ken, are you going to, should I just read them through the chat? I see several people typing, so I feel like some are coming. I did say to wait, so yeah, that's okay. Max won a job at FunCon. How to print hello world. Let's see, I can probably find a YouTube tutorial on that. YouTube tutorials are great. I use them all the time. Braxy's is the best one for Unity. Braxy's is a good one for Unity, and I actually a really good one for C++. Let me find it. I think it's called the Chorno series. Yeah, the Chorno is a really good C++ series on YouTube. Okay, here we go. In regards to talking our in regards to talking about our game projects, would mods for existing games we made would be something to mention? Yes, absolutely. I think mods are great, and I think they're a great thing to have on your portfolio. In fact, I remember at Jam City we hired someone and we looked at his Minecraft mod. I think mods are definitely something to put on a portfolio. If you're not or no longer sure, how would you say is a good way to narrow down what you should or want to specialize in? Say something like narrative or level design or AI programming or elsewise. Well, that is a good question. I think that uh, you should definitely make a game on your free time to see what you're really interested in. I do think it's good to, if you want to work in AAA, to narrow down in a certain specialty, because large game teams do specialize on certain, or you will be specializing on certain features. I would say just continue working and just find out, like, by working on, maybe try building an audio feature for a game, or work on an AI feature for a game, or try to write a narrative script or work on a cinematic for a game, and maybe have someone review it and see, like, what did you enjoy doing the most. I think that will go a long way, because that you'll be more passionate about your work. You talked about hosting your Unity projects on a portfolio. Is there equivalent for Unreal projects that you know of? You can also host Unreal projects on your portfolio as well. Uh, I think everything that applies to Unity applies to Unreal. I've never made a WebGL Unreal build and published to a web page, but I'm pretty sure they have that HTML5 support. So basically everything that went, like, if I were to put an Unreal project on my portfolio, I would say, okay, have a link to the project, a YouTube video of the project, an executable to the project, or a web page to the project, and even a GitHub portfolio for the project. How many code samples would you recommend displaying on a website or resume? How much code would be too little or too much? I think that you shouldn't put code samples on a portfolio or resume. I think you should just link your GitHub. And if anyone's actually curious at looking at your code, I would they would go to the GitHub and find it. Now, I have been in interviews where I had to bring a code sample just so we could discuss. That code sample, I would choose a code sample that you were very proud of building, and something that you thought was really cool gameplay wise, because that, or something that there's a lot to talk about. How would you recommend we develop soft skills like teamwork, communication, etc., especially if we find difficulties with such skills? That is a great question. I think a really good a really good way to do that is, like I said, go to game jams, because you will be working with others and you will be collaborating with others over a period of time. I think that, the more experience working with a team on a project, the better. Uh, so really, you can also go on any web page and go and look for game jams, and go and find groups. Like, if you're by yourself, you can find a group that will want to work with you. I also think it's like, if you want to practice soft skills, maybe put out, a YouTube video of a stream of yourself, coding a problem in Unity. I think that'll help, practice communication skills. Because personally, I have seen or watched many YouTube videos of another developer just streaming, "Hey, here's how I made a laser pointer for a gun in Unreal." Oh, so that's cool. Is it helpful to link the Git page of a project you are a designer rather than a programmer? I think it's helpful to link it because you'll never know who's um you never know who's going to pull it or who's going to look through the code and asset. I think even if you're a game designer, I think a GitHub link is good because it shows the project is public and you'll see all the commits and you'll see how much work has been put into it. General thoughts on job hopping in the game industry. Well, I there does seem to be turnover at um, just in the industry in general. I I can only speak from personal experience. On that end, I guess I when you're applying, actually think about, hey, this is a place that I really want to work long term, and I can see my work or I can see myself working long term. I think that is really important when applying for a role. So yeah, sure, maybe apply, like send out 1,000 resumes, which some people do. But at the end of the day, it is work and you want to enjoy that work. So make sure you do a lot of research about the company as well, from friends, from Glassdoor, or from any outside source you can provide information. Does Redstorm offer internships? The answer to that question is Redstorm, and I actually spoke to an HR representative about internships right before this. Redstorm does not offer internships directly because we have something that's called a graduate program within Ubisoft, and I actually have the link. Let's see. Let me find. I have the link handy. I'll reply to your message. Yeah. So this is very new at Ubisoft, and it is basically graduate programs for aspiring developers where you actually might be assigned Red Storm as the studio that you would be doing the internship with. I imagine it's best to only or predominantly have finished material as part of your portfolio. In other words, is it a bad idea to have unfinished projects slash productions in one? That's a great question, and I think it really depends on the state of the project. Like if the game can't run, or if the code is buggy or if it's really bad, definitely I would improve it upon that to make it at least in some sort of playable state. I wouldn't put something broken or or yeah, broken or doesn't even run or has a lot of crashes. I think that's not a good look. I think you should definitely polish it enough, even if it's unfinished, like even if it's missing characters or weapons or art. I think it's fine to. I mean, that's the point of a GitHub portfolio that's public. Someone can literally clone the project and play it or fork it. I think that there's no problem with having unfinished projects on your portfolio. But if you're going to advertise it to a hiring manager or know that someone is going to play the build or play the game, I would definitely make sure it runs and there are no major issues preventing the recruiter or somebody trying to play the game from actually playing it. Got another question being typed. A few more questions being typed. I am familiar with Unity, but most studios around North Carolina use Unreal. How do I leverage my Unity C# skills to land a job with another engine? That is a great question. Well, so one thing you could do if you're really passionate about Unity and you can't get a Unity developer role in North Carolina, but want to live in North Carolina, I know, because of recent circumstances and how the game industry has changed with the pandemic, I know a lot of studios are offering fully remote roles that you could look into. And the other thing is, yeah, it definitely, if a studio is using Unreal, it's definitely, I think it would be more valuable if you had an Unreal project on your portfolio. But that's not saying that if a company uses Unreal and you have a Unity project, they're not going to take that seriously, because they will. Um, I think that Unity, C Sharp, and Unreal C++, they are both commercial game engines and have similar goals. I think if you really want to improve your chances at getting that Unreal position role, I would, start maybe try even porting your project to Unreal and seeing what that is like. Okay, any more questions? We got a few in the pipeline. Okay, cool. Cool, you can see people typing. They are great questions. Is design documentation for a game that isn't a presentable state yet worth including? I think definitely for a game design role, I think it's definitely worth including for sure. Even even any other role other than game design, it definitely doesn't hurt, because it's shown that you've put work, and this is actually a game in whatever state it is actually being worked on, and that's, I think, very important. Yeah, with personal projects and stuff, you really can't go wrong with most of it having, in most cases, having, um, a live working project or a progression of work on your portfolio. I didn't know if my question was answered earlier, but during an interview, when you said that the interviewer would ask you what your proudest game design in a game is, would that also apply to an artist if it has to do with a 3D design or 2D design? I would say I've never been in a artist interview, but I am sure that those questions are asked throughout all disciplines. Describe a project or a game project or a design or a model, a piece of art, prop that you are proud of, and why are you proud of it? Say, oh, I optimized it, or I moved it from this number of triangles to this, or it took me this long. I think it looks really good. I think that question applies definitely, to a piece of art. Okay, another question. Should you apply for positions that seem to be out of your skill set? For example, if someone thinks they're a junior, should they apply for a mid-level position? Another example, if you're more comfortable with gameplay scripting, should you even apply for an engine engineer position? Wow, great question. Yeah, so I think that if the studio does not, like, say you're a junior and you want a junior role, and the studio only has a entry level role on their webpage, I would apply to that role, just the entry level role, and also message that recruiter on LinkedIn saying, "Hey, I applied to this entry level role. I was wondering if you had any junior roles available." So maybe the LinkedIn recruiter won't even see your message or will miss your message. You might have someone from HR saying, "Hey, this person applied for an entry level role, but we have a junior role that we haven't posted on our webpage yet, or that we know we're going to need in 2 months when this project starts scaling up." I definitely think it's completely fine to apply for a mid level role if you're a junior. If you're more comfortable with gameplay scripting, should you even apply for an engine engineer position? I mean, I think you should only apply for an engine engineer position if that's something you want to do or something you are qualified with. If you are a gameplay scripter or you want to focus on technical gameplay scripting or technical game design, as some places like to call it, I think that you should avoid applying for the engine engineer position because those roles will be very different. But if you're an engine engineer and that's something you want to do, but you're also good at scripting, definitely apply for it. If you're primarily a programmer, but you want to get into design, how do I market myself? Is it worth putting together more broad skills like models you've done, despite that not being the focus area? I don't think there's an issue with being primary programmer and wanting to get into design. I think that everything that I said in this talk, the personal portfolio, having a playable game, having um, talking about gameplay mechanics on your webpage, applies to both a programmer and a game designer. I think that um, I think that's also like they go very hand in hand. As you know, if you want to get more of a design role, you may not, put put a link to code or whatnot. But I think they're both very applicable. Okay, any more questions? I don't see anyone typing, so I think that might be it. Oh wait, here we go. Here we go. Got another one. Got another one. Okay, as a modeler talking to an engineer, how would you tell me you need something from me in regards of my models? How would you communicate that to me? I've listened to a few other people from different departments, and they've mentioned that in their workplace, it's more of a pool of modelers, and he would just submit a request without ever really communicating with a modeler directly. Well, so I can only speak for, how I would do it at Redstorm, and we work very closely with animators. I do, and the character team every day. So it would be more of basically the animator is sort of a conduit between the gameplay programmer and um, the actual modeler. um, but I we don't go through any at least for an engineer. So how it'll work, I'll know I'll have a task, and that task will be in Jira, and that task might include something to do with animation, and that task will be linked to the animation task, which would be potentially linked to the modeling task related to the actual model for that animation. But at the same time, I know that my task relies on animation, so I have gone either virtually or in the office, spoken directly to an animator or a character artist or character modeler. And that's where the same thing with props and weapons that I've worked on. What does interdepartment communication look like at Redstorm? That's a great question. I think Redstorm and Ubisoft is very good at interdepartment communication. I think that I don't only speak to engineers every day. I speak to designers. I speak to artists. I speak very closely with QC because they find stuff that I break um, in the games I work on. I think collaboration is very key in in game development. I think Red Storm does a really good job with that. I would say that I'm in, especially now virtually, I'm in multiple, we use Microsoft Teams. I'm in multiple Teams channels with different departments. You can always, everyone is very friendly. You can always go ask a designer from another team, hey, how does this work? How do I make the player do this? How do I turn on this debug option? Um, it's very open, the interdepartment communication. There's no, in fact, before we went remote because of the pandemic, all the teams all sat together, and so you sat very closely with others from your team, and not, so I didn't only sit near programmers. I sat near designers. I could eat, like, I was a foot away from um, someone from QC. If I needed something to get dev tested or I needed help solving a bug, they were right there. I think that is one of the most important parts of large scale game development, is interdepartment communication. I think that Red Storm does a very good job at that. And I can also say the same thing with JM City. They also did a very good job with that. Awesome. I kind of want to be that person for programmers, the one working closely with other departments to figure out what the programmers need to do. Yes. So I know producers work very closely with, um, or game designers also work very closely be, with, as a conduit between programmers, artists, designers, QC, really, the whole, all disciplines. I think a game design or a producer role is something that works very closely with other departments to figure out what the programmers need to do. Because a lot of times we get our tasks from either a level designer or a producer. Any tips on game industry networking during the pandemic? This event has been one of the only ones even happening that I've been aware of in the past year. That is a great question, and this has also been the only event that I have known about. I would just, yeah, I would use this event to talk to people and see if there are other events. Honestly, I mean, there's many chats in this Discord channel. There's Meet to Match help desk, company intros, post sessions chats. I would use, basically, you're here. I would use this event to network, and then hopefully we are able to have um, maybe more in person or more events in the future. The pandemic did um, take a toll on these events for sure, and did make it a lot harder for game industry networking. But I would look through all the channels of ECGC and see, okay, what's the next thing I can attend, or what's the future plans. And that's feasible to reach through the programming route. Oh, that's a question related to, awesome. I want to be that person for programmers, the one working closely with other departments. Yeah, I think, I mean, if you're a programmer, you need to work closely with other departments, because you need to know, you need to work, you'll work pretty much with all of the departments, especially game design, because you're basically part of what a programmer does is it helps empower content creators, which are game designers. So you'll help make building blocks for those. So definitely it is feasible through a programming role. Would you be hire an intern that is in a gap year who has a finished portfolio? I actually am not sure. My guess is yes, but the best thing to do would be to either look on that webpage or message an HR person from Red Storm or Ubisoft directly, and they would be happy to answer your questions about that. I'm not that familiar with the graduate program at Ubisoft because it is very new, related to a Ubi product like For Honor. This may be more of a Ken question, but will this server remain active after ECGC? Ken, do you know the answer? Oh, you have no idea. Thanks, Ken. How much experience do people need before they qualify as an entry level rather than a junior? That really depends on the studio, the company that you're looking to apply. And from personal experience, I would say 2 to 3 years usually of some sort of professional experience before moving from junior to entry level. But once again, that could be different. Each company has their own criteria for positions. Cool. One of the most common requests when applying for positions is shipped titles. What's a good way to get shipped titles under your belt without having an industry job? Well, I think the best thing to do there is either work alone or find a team of people and publish a indie game on Steam in your spare time. I know that they have a greenlit indie project system for getting new games out there. I think, yeah, working on a small project in your spare time by yourself or with others and trying to get that thing on Steam, I think would go a really long way. Publishing your own game will count as a shipped title. Well, yeah, I mean, technically once it's out there and other people are playing it, is it a shipped title? Yeah. It depends on whether it doesn't really matter if it makes money. It is shipped. You put it shipped really, I guess, has could mean anything, but you put it on a public platform and it is commercially available. It may not be AAA, but it is a title that is out there on Steam. It might be indie, but yeah, sure. Better than nothing. Yes. Also, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I think if you just search my name, you'll be able to find me on LinkedIn, and feel free to ask me any questions if a new one comes up in the coming days. You kind of talked about it earlier, but does the experience companies look for only mean professional work, or can it mean student work if it's high quality enough? Yeah, I think it can mean student work. I've put student work on my resume and talked about it at interviews like 3 or 4 years after I was done with college. So I definitely think you can put student work if it looks good and especially if it's a game and it's fun to play or it's interesting. So a ship title is one that is capable of making you money. Doesn't have to be one that is a knockout hit. I think you can make your game free and put it on Steam and it's still a ship title. I don't think money um, determines whether it's a ship title or not. But once again, other people could have different interpretations of that. But I don't like if you have a game that you have published on Steam, you have shipped it on Steam, other people can play it, whether it's $0 or $30. Cool. Great questions today. Great questions. But yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free to you can message me on Discord or connect with me on LinkedIn. Um, so yeah, thank you everyone. It was great having this uh, get being able to speak again about breaking into the industry. Yeah, of course. I wanted to always. I remember I gave this talk when I was at Jam City at ECGC, and I kind of bloated the talk. I didn't leave enough time for questions. So when I made a new presentation, I timed myself. I actually prepared it at the office, and I timed myself to make sure there was enough time for questions because I know with a talk like this, those are uh, really important. Nice. Oh no, I was saying yeah. Thank you again. If I don't talk to you again, hope to see you next year in person. Right.